What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of A Conversation with Josh Field. We are back again like we never left. We did take a little bit of a break, but if you're a real one, if you are subscribed, if you are liking this content, or if you're just seeing this on social media, thank you for tuning in. We're excited to be back. We're in a brand new space. A lot has happened since the last episode, but hey, this is episode 23 in 2023. Come on. The guest already said this is the Jordan year of the podcast, so we're super excited to bring you a brand new episode. I believe we have some great conversations coming to take place of this individual that's on. I'm super excited. This has been a little bit of a time in the making, but really excited for what God's going to do today through this conversation. So with us today, we have Pastor Alex Suber. What's up, bro?
Good to be here.
Dude, good to have you.
Invite.
Dude, of course, man. So what's crazy is we're in an apartment complex that you used to live in. Yep. How long ago was that?
Almost 10 years, exactly.
10 years. Was that when you were a youth pastor at Riverside?
Yep.
Dude.
Covenant Life Center.
CLC?
Actually. Covenant Life Center.
OG? Yep. CLC?
Yep. CLCVictoria.org.
What's your old email? No,
just Alex at CLCVictoria.org.
Dude, that's awesome. So for those who might not know you, obviously you used to work at Riverside back when it was Covenant Life Center. What's a little bit about like where your come up, your origin, what you've been doing since, what got you to where you are now? You're a pastor. Where'd you start? How things go?
So I'll try to condense it down. Moved around a bunch when I was a kid. Grew up most of my childhood in South Louisiana. Graduated high school in Shreveport. But my mom's side of the family is from the Austin area, Austin, Texas. So
real quick, South Louisiana?
Yeah. I thought I told you that.
Oh, you did, because you know where Pierre Part is.
Yeah. So
Shout
I was
out.
in Bogalusa. Yeah.
What? I forgot.
I was
Bogalusa.
there from
a real one.
4 to 11, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was like very pivotal years. You know, my parents were pastors there, and then we moved around a ton. But my mom's family was always from Austin, so that's where we'd go back for Thanksgiving, stuff like that. So that kind of always felt like the home base. Because everything else changed. But yeah, I did all that. Graduated high school in Shreveport. When I was in high school, was planning on going to LSU, had some scholarships, some different things. My parents were basically like, hey, we've been in ministry. We don't have a college fund or anything like that. So like, you're going to have to figure it out. So worked hard, I wasn't the smartest, but I did a lot of extracurricular. That's kind of where I started, like a lot of leadership and different things, was getting involved in clubs and stuff, because I was just like, hey, I was just trying to pad like the college resume. But now, I'm like, okay, God was kind of setting me up. And then my senior year of high school, my parents were, they were like, you're going to be at church. So I was a pastor's kid. I never really got like too wild with things or too crazy with things. I would just say I was just, just nominal, just kind of like, I believe in God, like go to church, but I'm not really praying. I'm not really factoring God into my life. Like when I was like, I'm going to go to LSU and I'm going to go to law school after that. It was never, I'm going to pray about that. It was just, this is what I want to do. God, I hope you're okay with it. And, but my parents were like, Sunday church, we had Monday night prayer, and then we had Wednesday church. And they're like, you're going to be there, even though I was doing homework or whatever. And so at one of those Monday night prayer meetings, I was like, okay, I'm going to give this, God, if you're real, kind of one of those experiences. And I just really encountered God in a real way. And the way I kind of like to say is, I really believe that I was saved and I was even filled with the Spirit, but that's really when I surrendered to God as Lord of my life. Like, you are now in control of my life. And from that time on, everything changed. So I went from just, these are my plans and this is what I'm going to do, God, to, okay, what do you want me to do? And that led me to declining those scholarships to LSU, moving with my family back to Texas, and just kind of being like, okay, God, what's next? And got involved with a ministry school. That's kind of what connected me with Covenant Life Center, aka Riverside, and came here for a little bit, was a student pastor, youth pastor, and then honestly just kind of bounced around for a while at that time of my life. And I'm a big proponent of this for anybody that's watching, that's teenager in your early 20s, really all throughout your 20s, is like, get experience, if you can, be responsible, obviously, but if you get a job offer in another state and there's nothing holding you back, you know, hey, maybe go live in another state, live in another country. You know, my wife, she moved to another country for 3 years.
Wow.
And so I was just trying to get experience and always just taking that next step of what God opened the door for. And I feel like we're still doing that today. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But yeah, so, you know, God would just open these different doors. And then that kind of leads to my mid-20s, and felt a call to plant a church in Austin. And I thought I would do it like way later on. So my plan was move back to Austin, you know, get a job, just start working, do whatever. Me and my wife are not together at this time, not dating, not anything like that. And then, you know, when I go down there, it's just like, okay, let's just go ahead and get this started. And ended up actually kind of partnering with my parents. Me and my wife started dating at that time. So it's like starting a church, starting a relationship.
Wow.
She was long distance. She's living in Australia at the time.
My goodness.
So 2016 was crazy. But we were like, let's just go ahead and get it started. And a mentor of mine, I think this is great advice for anybody that's out there, who's like, you can get more training and you can, you know, study more, or you can just start. And 10 years down the line, you may still be in that phase 1, but you'll have so much experience and you'll have so much knowledge just from starting. So I was like, well, instead of waiting 10 years, because in my mind, I was like, I need to wait till I'm like 35, 40. So it was about 10 years. And he was like, well, why don't you just grind the next 10 years? And even if it doesn't, you know, bloom or grow like you want, at least you have that 10 years of experience. So we just got started, and God blessed it. You know, we started our first official services, Sunday services, in October of 2016.
Wow.
And then me and my wife co-led, and then we're the lead pastors of that church for right at, I guess it was 6 years, almost 7 years, 6.5 years. And then this past summer, announced that we were going to be stepping down and resigning from that position. So everything was great. You know, the budget was bigger than ever. Attendance was great. You know, we suffered like a lot of churches after COVID. You know, we kind of went down to probably about a third of our attendance and regrew it back, but attendance was growing. Great relationships, bringing on new staff, you know, everything going good. And we just felt like the Lord was leading us into a new season. And now we're kind of seeing, you know, that there were still some things we needed to grow in and be stretched in. And so, we resigned from that position, not knowing what was next, and still stayed in Austin for a couple months. And then like literally a week ago, 2 weeks ago, decided to move down here to Victoria. And just for context, for those that are listening, watching, my wife is from Victoria, and all of her family's here. Our family, her side of the family, they're all here. So it was like, hey, let's go down there, be with that side of the family, at least for a little bit. Maybe could be long term. But that's what brings us here. So we're kind of in this like new phase, new chapter, you know, whatever you want to call it. But that's about as short as I can get.
No, I love that. I think that was perfect. You didn't like, man, that was enough context, and now we can navigate a little bit, because I have all the questions now. For even those who might not know, I don't have like I met you at the wedding I met my wife at 2 years or almost 3 years ago. 3 years ago in 2020. I met you. We really didn't have much conversation. Haley and Caleb's wedding. We didn't have much conversation, and then like now I'm like getting to know you. So this is like a lot of this information is like some new to me, some fresh to me. And it's
great because I don't feel like I'm like retelling.
It is. I'm like fascinated by this story. I'm like, man, that's so good. Y'all started dating long distance, and some of the stuff I might have like heard, but like just hearing you tell it, like from your perspective, what you were going through, the emotions, man, that's wild. But you're right. What's so cool about this, with your story and where you're at right now, that's why I love that I get to have you on, is you're in the in-between right now. So what did that look like, dude? Like, being obedient to God's voice, stepping into the unknown, like was it like, man, should I not, like what, like no other like you were like, we're just gonna go sit and wait on God. Because
that's what a lot of people, you know, they're like, oh, we're gonna step out in faith, but they already have like something else lined up. And that's honestly what a lot of people thought we were doing. So when we announced we have people come up to us kind of being like, yeah, but like, what are y'all doing? You know, like kind of, and we did announce, we did start are in the process still of starting our own ministry called Carry Revival.
Yeah.
And that's still a lot in the works. So I won't talk too much about that. It's not like a secretive, it's just still, we're figuring it out. So we did announce, hey, we're going to be starting this ministry. We're going to be traveling, but you know, it wasn't like, okay, we're going to go on staff at this church or we have this position. And so, I mean, honestly, it's scary because, you know, we have 2 young boys, one that's about to be 1 and the older one's about to be 3.
Wow.
Our younger son was in the hospital for 10 weeks after he was born. Wow. So we went through a lot of stress with that. Thankfully, we don't have a ton of medical bills and different things, which is something we're very grateful for. But, you know, 2 young boys. We bought our first home about 1.5 years ago. So you're like, okay, you know, we finally got the house. Like, okay, we're getting it. And then to have that unknown of with income, with, you know, no security, no safety net, anything like that. So it was scary. But I think we've always tried to live our lives with the thought of the safest place for us to be is in the will of God. And I know that's a cliche thing for us to say, and maybe you've heard that before. Maybe you never heard that before, but you know, a lot of times Christians will say that, but it's so true, whether it's with your finances, your career, your relationship. The safest place for you to be is exactly where God wants you to be. And I actually heard a pastor say a sermon I was listening to this past week. You know, he said, if you'll go where God is telling you to go, He'll tell your provision to go there as well.
Wow.
And a lot of times we think, oh, God's going to send us to wherever the provision is. And it's like, no, if you'll go where He tells you to go, He can make the provision go there too, even if it's not already there.
Wow.
So it was definitely, you know, scary.
Yeah.
And we dealt with things. I know I've mentioned to you briefly, like some people thinking that there was some backstory, you know, something's going to come out, something, you know, some kind of scandal, something like that. And it's been about 6 months, and so I think people are starting to believe us that like nothing's gonna come out.
Yeah, y'all just following God.
But yeah, it's just following God. And so we kind of, what happened was, I've kind of felt something stirring, and never really done this before, but I've heard of like other people that I respect that have done this in different seasons where they kind of went away for like prayer and fasting for a couple of days. So I talked to Hannah. I was like, hey, I want to just kind of lock away somewhere where nobody's going to bother me, you know, whatever. So I found this, like, literally somebody put this like shed in their backyard on Airbnb. And I mean, it was nice on the inside, but it was like a room just in somebody's backyard with like an AC, you know, window unit. And so I got that for like 3 days.
Wow.
And I just got a bunch of bottles of water. I was going to be fasting. I told Hannah, I was like, I'll call you when I wake up, you know, around noon-ish, and then whenever the boys are getting ready to go to bed, like FaceTime me so I can talk with them. And I was like, other than that, I'm gonna like cut off all communications, all social media, just so I can hear from God.
Man.
And so when I came back from that after 3 days, I told Hannah, I was like, I feel like we should resign. Here's some other things I'm feeling like about our future, about vision God's given me. And she was just immediately like, I feel so much peace about that. Like, I feel so good about that. And even in that moment, we were saying like, hey, you know, just being, because I'm very like black and white, like, okay, let's be real about this, you know, money and these things and these things. And like, you know, we have these different, you know, different stuff. And we just had so much peace of like, we don't care about any of that, you know, like if we can continue to feel this peace of God, like we're good. And so, yeah, it was very scary, especially as like a husband, especially as the sole provider, you know, the past couple of years with the boys. Hannah hasn't been she's been working, but as a mom and a homemaker. And so it's just like sole provider, dad, husband, and just being like, deuces to my job.
Right, man. What the heck?
And even dealing with like the stuff of you know, especially people who aren't believers, but even from some believers, of just, that's irresponsible, and how could you do that, you know, to your family, and how could you but again, going back to, but it's not me just doing this, because if it was me, like, I don't want to do this. I think that's the thing is, I think it's, you know, it's from God when you feel a peace about it and you're like, I'm gonna do this, but I don't want to do this.
That's
I think so many people, I always kind of, it's an easy like test for me when I'm talking with people, because it's like, God called me to do this. I'm like, no, you just want to do that. Like, you just want to do that. But then when you have people that like that does not sound like you at all. Like there's no way that you would want to do that. Even you see people that, feel called to different ministries, and it just doesn't fit their personality, like doesn't fit their background. It's not like a surefire thing, but to me, that's always kind of like, okay, well, maybe that's God, because there's no way you would do that on your own.
Right.
Like,
yeah. You're just following God.
Yeah.
Dude. And I feel like a lot of people who do leave out of situations and circumstances, whether they're following God, or not, I would say more so people who are following God and try to transition out of a season, whether if that's a ministry, a church, or a job. I want you to talk about how do you transition well, because I feel like that was huge, bro. Like, not only were you like leading the church and you stepped away and had to do that well between your staff, leaders, congregation, but also like that was you and your dad like birthed that church.
Yeah.
How do you transition out of that? How'd you transition out of that well, saying like, I'm being obedient and still getting the naysayers,
right,
but trusting that God called you out?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think any kind of transition, you always honor people. Like I'm such a big proponent of, even when people do you wrong, even when people mistreat you, you're never going to go wrong with honoring people. And, that doesn't necessarily mean you give them full access to your life, or you may not even give them like a full explanation. There's some people that I maybe told a little bit ahead of time, like before we made the big announcement, I wanted to like tell them ahead of time, but I maybe didn't give them like a full explanation. So, I'm still honoring them, but it may not be like, okay, but I don't have to give you like everything and to be honoring you. Yeah. So I think just like honoring people, and a big thing for me was, especially when we left Oasis, and I mean, I guess you could apply this to, different jobs and different things, is being grateful for people, the people that helped you get there, the people that, there were people at our church that like literally, I always tell the story where there was one time when it was literally me, my aunt and uncle, and there was one other couple, Miss Maggie and Mr. Robert Garza, who are still part of the church. Actually, Miss Maggie actually got ordained and is now one of the pastors at the church. And it was just the five of us in a core team meeting, a launch team meeting, before we actually launched the church. And we're like, we're going to launch a church and we're going to do this thing. And it's like, it's just five of us, bro. Like, this is not. Yeah. And so, especially people like that, like thanking them for believing in you. And because I think there is a certain level of, I mean, I think it's expected for some people to kind of feel a little bit almost like abandoned, or like, well, you said all this stuff and this dream and this whatever. So we really tried to honor those people. And then the big thing kind of overall was letting people know, this is going to continue on. And it has. I mean, it's continued. There's really been which we're very thankful for, like drop, like, 100 people leave the church after 1 week or something like that. That's awesome. And so our kind of final statement, like address to the church, we kind of wrapped it up with like, hey, if you believed in us, like if you loved us, get planted here even more, buy in here even more. Because I think a lot of people, again, it would be kind of natural of like, well, if you guys are leaving, like, well, we love y'all, we're gonna, and so we just tried to really overemphasize that of like everything we've said about the vision and about what God's called us to do, like that's all continuing. It's just we've kind of played our part, and almost like a relay race. It's like we're passing this off now, but it's still going forward. And just trying to remind people of that, because I think, again, it can just seem like, well, this is over. Like this is, it's like, no, we can continue these relationships, and different things may look different, but it doesn't have to be like, because I think it almost can feel like almost like a death in a way type of thing. And even if you have like friends, and maybe, I mean, you experienced this recently, you're moving, which is not super far, but moving from Houston to Victoria. And it's like, your boys and you had your routines and you had your stuff that you're doing. It's like, well, I'm getting married now, like moving to a new city. And so there is that like sense of loss, and I think that's okay. Like, I think it's good to kind of even acknowledge that a little bit, but then follow it up with that season, that chapter, like, let's celebrate it for what it was, and then let's go forward into this new chapter excited, instead of being like, man, this, it's never going to be like it once was. It's never going to be like back in the day where we'd all just like hang out all night and play basketball. And, and it's like, no, it may not be that way anymore, but there's something new that can
evolving,
come, and something beautiful that can come now.
That's so good, dude. That's so good to sit on that a little bit. Like when you leave, now that you've left and you transitioned out, being in a place now where kind of what you did now you realize wasn't your identity. What does it look like now being like, all right, like I'm the lead pastor, man, everything's great. This is what I do. I have my routine. I have my family. We do this, we do that. And now like kind of like what you said, like spending alone time with God, like where do you find your identity in God? And like for someone who maybe they've just walked out of a relationship, it could, like we talked earlier, it could be different situations, same emotion. Maybe they just left a relationship. Maybe they thought they were going to get accepted to this school. They didn't get it. How do you find your identity now in the season you are currently in? Because you're still rocking and rolling, showing up to prayer at the church, 7 a.m., like seeking the Lord. Like where do you find your motivation to get your identity and your calling?
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other story, because I mean, for so long, like every personality test I take, I'm like a achiever, like go, like work hard. Like my tendency is probably to be like a workaholic, like lean more towards the work balance than like the life balance of things. Like that's, my natural personality. So I've actually had like several years of soul searching and trying to like figure that out for myself. But I think the big thing is, I mean, you kind of said it, is not finding your identity in what you do, because life is going to change a lot. Like that's something I've been talking about recently with a lot of people, is there's been so many different stages of just in the past 10 years, kind of, because I'm kind of wrapping up my 20s. But if you look at like from high school till now, I mean, I've lived so many different places, had so many different jobs and roles and different things, and that's just going to continue. And I think we get in our mind that we're going to reach this place where, okay, I have my job, I have where I live, I have my family, and I'll finally make it, and then that'll just be it.
So
and that's just not how life is. Like, even if you do stay in a consistent job, it's like the company's going to change as things grow, and maybe you're going to change roles, or maybe you're going to have a new team member come in that makes your job difficult, or maybe your family changes, maybe you lose someone you love. Like there's always going to be those things happening, and so not finding it in what you do, not finding your identity in what you do, but finding your identity in simply just being a son of God. And I say a son of God because that's the language the Bible uses, but it's really men and women, to be a child of God. And when I look at my children, really being a dad helped me a lot with this. I'm sure you'll experience this one day. But I look at my kids and my sons, and they can't do anything for me. I mean, they can make me smile, they can make me laugh, they can give me a little kiss, but they can't pay any of my bills. They can't help me fix my car. They can't mow the lawn yet, any of that stuff. But I would literally lay down my life for them. And I think for so long I had in my mind that I was doing something for God. Like, God, like, I got to really help you out on this one. Like, I gotta really push at the church, because if I don't push at the church, we're not going to get this for Easter. And if we don't get this for Easter, there's not going to be as many salvations. And it's like, I'm all about hard work and pushing and those different things. But God looks at us like a little baby that can't do anything.
Wow.
You know, we have a new niece that is like Sayla. She can't do anything for anybody, but everybody's just staring at her and wants to do. And when I started to view the relationship with God like that, it's like, yes, of course, God has called us to be a part of the Great Commission and to reach people, but it's mostly just being a son, being a child. And that really, really helped change things for me. I'm not having to earn God's love. I'm not having to earn his grace. Because I think I had that mentality too. Like, okay, God, well, I have to do a lot of great things for you in order for you to really accept me. And that goes back to like insecurities and bullying when I was younger and different things like that of like, okay, I've really got to do a lot to like impress God. And so, yeah, just bringing it back to that revelation of I can't really do anything for him.
Wow.
And so why would I find my identity in what I'm doing? Because one, life is going to change. Life's going to throw you curveballs. And then two, you're not impressing God. You're not earning anything from God. And then also like on the, like, make it practical, like people probably aren't impressed either.
Wow.
like we do a lot of things.
That's good.
We do a lot of things like trying to impress people and no one's thinking about us.
No one notices.
No one notices. That's the thing that, you know, a lot of people when they get in the gym, they're like, I'm worried about, you know, people are going to judge me. It's like, no one's watching you in the gym. Like,
that is so true.
They're either on their phone or they're working out hard themselves. And they're just trying to not die.
Yeah. Or they're thinking that the same thing. I wonder if anyone's looking at me.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's concerned in their own little world.
Exactly. That's such a good point. So, you know, again, we get wrapped up of like, man, I got to have that job because, you know, I got to impress my buddies from college or my buddies from my hometown. And it's like, those dudes are worried about the job they're going to get. So stop focusing on that. Man. And I think you'll be a lot more happy in life, a lot more fulfilled in life.
Yeah, that's great. That's so great. Man, that's a lot of good stuff in that. I can't wait to go back and listen to it. That was really good, Alex. So, man, you're killing it, bro. You're killing it. So now you're in Victoria. Now you're here. What does that look like for you? Like, what does your time look like on a regular basis in between? Like, I wouldn't even say in between, but in this season of seeking God for the next, maybe what's your routine look like? What does your time with him look like? What are you doing here that you feel like is making your future be more effective?
Yeah. That's a great question. I mean, that's really one of the reasons we came here is because there were a few different places, really churches, but a few different cities that we were like, that's somewhere where we feel like we would be comfortable, you know, planting our family, planting our boys. Because that's something, especially now with just everything in the world, like, and even in churches, we're so sensitive to is like, what are our boys hearing? What are they being brought up under? That sort of stuff. And then Pastor Bobby reached out to us, you know, the pastor of Riverside. And so we came down here. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's been fun for me because I feel like I'm able to go back to the basics and also
that's cool.
Focus on me and my family more, which may sound like kind of weird or selfish or whatever. But when you're leading a church, and even if somebody's watching this, and you could even apply this to like managing people or, you know, teachers and different things, it's like, you know, you're learning because you have to pour out to other people. So it's like if you're a manager at a job, you know, your job is making sure other people are doing their job well. And so even though, yes, of course I had my personal Devo time and my own prayer time and stuff, there is this like, okay, well, I'm trying to get the church to pray more. Like I'm trying to get the church to read their Bible more. Like I'm trying to get my staff, like, you know, I'm trying to help them with their marriages. I'm trying to help them with their kids, different things, which I loved. And I think I'll do that again one day. Yeah. But it's been nice to just be like, hey, like I can just like read the Bible and just, you know, hang out with my family and with my boys. So kind of practically what that's looking like is, we have 3 days a week here at Riverside. We have an early morning prayer. So I've been getting up, going to that, pray for an hour.
Yeah.
And then after that, I usually just do like my personal reading time. I've been reading First Peter a lot. And so I feel like God, the word for this year, which is not a fun word, is for me is endure.
Oh, wow.
So, we always want to get those words like
Wow.
break through and overcome.
Yeah.
And so I felt like the word for this year was endure.
Man.
And I'm even doing some things like physical things to like match up with that.
Wow.
So I'm running my first half marathon
Come
next
on,
month.
dude. What?
Of kind of like, kind of
that's exciting.
matching that up.
Oh my goodness.
Of just, because there's so much in the Bible about like running the race, marching on, pressing forward. So I've just really been on that a lot, reading, like I said, through First Peter, studying that. And then, recently it's just been a lot of trying to get our house rented out. So we were renting our house in Austin.
Yeah.
So learning all that's been a whole new experience. Like, I mean, I feel like everybody kind of in the back of their heads, like, yeah, I'd love to have rental properties one day.
Yeah.
But like actually being like, oh no, like I'm a landlord now and I have to have like contracts and set up payments and, make sure people aren't skipping out. Yeah. All that stuff. So I've been learning a lot about that.
Wow.
And then just trying to spend family time, like I said. But the big thing, reason we came here is we wanted to be able to be somewhere where, we could be involved with the church and be growing ourselves, because
that's good.
The big temptation for us right now, and I was talking with a friend about this today, is kind of a similar season. He was a church planner, closed that church down, and then now is kind of, serving in a church, working a 9 to 5. And he's like, I feel like God's called me to be a pastor, but it's like really hard. And we were just kind of bouncing back and forth. I think the temptation is to not, and you have to understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it would be a bad thing, but to not like settle for less than what God has called us to. And that looks different for everybody. But, me and my wife, we've been, leading in ministry for a decade now, and we know that there's things that God's called us to in the future. Yeah. But it just seems like that's not right now. So the temptation is like just to get real stagnant right now. Like, okay, well we're just gonna chill. We're just gonna whatever. I don't have to go to early morning prayer. I don't have to whatever. And we just kind of are forcing ourselves not to get in that mindset. So it's like we're showing up early to church, we're taking notes, we're doing all the other things. And then something I guess the last thing I'll say about this is I've kind of had in the back of my mind, as me being a lead pastor before, I'm kind of like, okay, what are the people that like I love to have in the church because they were like a support to me. Like
that's cool.
Just those people that was like, man, I'm glad they're here today. Like I'm glad. Yeah. And so I'm now like, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to be like,
that's so cool.
Whatever they need, like show up early, stay late. And because, I'm not getting anything out of it. Yeah. But even that has been something really cool for me in this season because for about the past decade, I've had, it's a tremendous blessing, but to be able to, be paid by churches in some capacity, sometimes part-time, sometimes stipend, hey, here's $50 to be the youth pastor. Right. But it's still like, there is, I'm financially receiving from the church. And so it's been cool for me and Hannah we always knew this, but it's like, hey, we're not doing this for money. Yeah. And like this season is reminding us just for ourselves, like we're not in this for a paycheck. We're not in this for money. And I think that will give us confidence in whatever's next. Yeah. Because we'll always be able to say, hey, we walked away from, because people are like, oh, ministers, they just want your money. It's like, no, we actually walked away from that. Yeah. And then just served. Wow. So we know like what's in our heart. Yeah. And so that's been, I think, a big blessing to us is just to be able to serve without, and like it's only been a couple weeks, but we're going to continue without any like expectations or like, okay, well, you have to be here because you're an employee. You have to go to church on Wednesday night because you're paid by the church, or like because you have to preach to the youth or something like that. It's like, no, we're just going because that's our value and that's what we believe in. So it's been cool for us. I think almost kind of like proving it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And then hopefully it's like a help to the church and help to the pastors and things like that.
Yeah, I know I could speak on behalf of the staff, man. You and Hannah, y'all are amazing. But man, the way your attitude is, the way you're like, where can I help? How can I help? Man, and you just go above and beyond. I was showing Allison today the syllabus devo you did, and I was like, man, look how like excellent he did it. Like he didn't just like throw this in his notes and like you labeled it day, and then like all the way you did it, I was like, man, like it's just you can just see excellence on it.
Wow.
And your heart's in that, the way you're serving, like you said, not getting paid. I feel like in this season, like God sees that, God's going to honor that. Like you're serving with good intention, not to get anything back, but truly be like, I want to serve your church. I want to serve your people.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing, dude. And I'm excited. Yeah. I'm excited to have you here. And like so far, like even the past few weeks, it's been really cool to get to know you, and I'm learning a lot. It's like having another big brother, dude. Yeah. And I'm just grateful.
There's a whole little group of just people like bro. I was gonna say bros, but I was like, well, we're all married too. So
it's crazy to think. I was thinking about when you said you were like, we got a new niece. I was like, dude, all of Caleb's all of his groomsmen are his brothers.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think he might have said that recently. I know he said like
we thought about
we're all
that.
Like in Victoria or something now. But like I'm like, dude.
For those that don't know, I don't even want to try to explain it all, but we're all connected through different marriages and stuff.
Only God could do it, dude. Because like it's just so cool to see, and then what he's doing in this season at the church, and just the growth that's happening, the expansion that's happening, is just the people he's bringing in, Dr. Al, you, me coming on board. Like it's such a healthy place. People are growing, and it's no like shady business. It's just like it's authentic.
And I think people are drawn. I mean, I think people have always been drawn to that, but I think especially everything that has been exposed like the past couple of years, like within the church world. And I don't know who's all watching this. You may be like, what was exposed? You know, with COVID, there was just a lot of stuff that came out of people were in it for the wrong reasons, or, you know, people just left the ministry because of pressure, or there were, you know, different things exposed. And I think people are looking for like you said, like those healthy places. Yeah. And I'm not saying this necessarily of Riverside, but just like not necessarily the biggest like glamorous of just has all the stuff necessarily, but is healthy and wants to help people grow, want to help people develop and mature. Because I think people are just, I feel like, at least for us, and maybe you've been a part, because I know you've been a part of some amazing ministries, but I think you can have both those. You can definitely have like things very excellent, very nice, and be helping people grow. Yeah. But I think for a while, I know me and Hannah, kind of the environment we grew up in, it was so much like we got so hyped up about just all this like facade. And then once you kind of got to that, like, oh yeah, that was like, that looked great. But now that we're here, there's like no substance, there's no roots. And I think people, especially now, as you know, our generation, our age people, you know, we're getting married, starting to have kids, different things, like, okay, we're really looking for that like substance now. And again, that's one of the things that like drew us here. You even mentioned it with, you know, the Riveras, like their kids are such fruit. Pastor Bobby and Dawn, and that just show like that's so rare to see. You know, a ministry family that is not only a great family, but like all serve together and all love the church and different things. So that was one of the things that drew us, is the unity, the like camaraderie, and just that like family, whether it's actual blood family or just kind of church family, that family aspect of things. Because I think, again, like I said, there's just, we always talk about that, like church is a family, and, you know, like brothers and sisters in Christ and different things. But I think a lot of people have just been, they've realized that they don't actually have that for whatever reason, lots of different circumstances out there. And I think it's hurt a lot of people. Like me and Hannah have a ton of friends that have walked away from the faith, different things. And so, yeah, we're like, we want to be a part of that, you know, because we know we need it, like selfishly, but then also be, you know, help be a part of, you know, other people experiencing that as well. I think is really important.
Man, that's awesome. That's so good. Just loving people. Coming to like maybe a few last questions or question here. Just curious to hear your heart on this. So in this, I'm so excited just to hear what you have to share, but in this season of like in between, in this season of like trusting God, but like you said, the job opportunity isn't there. Like nothing's really there yet. If you could see what God is going to do, if God answered the prayer of your heart right now, where would you and your family be in like the next 5-10 years? What would that look like for the Subers?
Yeah. Let me see with my eyes closed for a minute. I'm a big proponent of I think I heard Pastor Mike Todd say it, but he said, sight is what you see with your eyes open, but vision is what you see with your eyes closed.
Wow.
So I'm a big fan of like,
that's good.
Let me not look at the circumstances around me, because if you look at the circumstances around you, there's no way that you can get yourself from here to there. So that's why you have to see that God vision.
Wow, so good.
But yeah, I think the dream in our heart, we started this ministry, Carry Revival, and we were talking about a few things like online stuff. I really have a big heart for media and like using the tools of social media, of internet, video sharing, different things like that to get the messages and really the message of the gospel, but take, things that pastors are teaching and different churches are teaching and get that out to the world. Because I think, for so long we had, you had like the printing press and the Bibles come along and it just revolutionizes things. And then you have like radio and people are just like, oh my gosh, now we can like preach on the radio. And for 70 or 80 years, then you had TV. But we talked about this, nobody our age like has cable TV or satellite. It's too expensive. It's whatever. And obviously there's a lot of people doing it, but I think the majority of the church world, Christianity, is not taking advantage of online, that digital message. And so I kind of have this phrase called digital discipleship. I'm sure other people have used that, but I really want to create some avenues and some venues for like digital discipleship. So big picture, I would love to be able to do two sides of things. One, I want to have a studio facility where we're able to create our own content, whether that's video courses. Like I just released a fasting course.
Wow, yeah.
Where it's a free course about an hour and a half long about fasting and just kind of like the Bible behind it and like how to fast, hey, you're going to get headaches for a couple of days, like just all that type. So create resources like that. And then also be able to commentate on culture stuff that's happening. So maybe we have like a around the horn, catch up at the end of the day, like, hey, here's what was happening on social media. Like, how do we process that as Christians type of thing? So have that, but then also be able to bring in pastors and authors and people like our friend Dr. Al, who have tons of incredible content, but just maybe don't have the resources or the know-how or whatever to get that out. And I would love to be able to just say like, hey, it's already paid for. Like we have the camera people, we have the equipment, like do your thing. We're going to package it up for you, bundle it for you. And like, here you go, do whatever you want with it. So that on one side. And then the other side is to be able to travel and do services that are, almost kind of, old school, like revival services, and be able to have the finances and things where we can just go into a city and rent a venue, rent sound, whatever, and hopefully be able to partner with churches, but not have to put the weight on the church of like, hey, can you raise the money so that we can do this? Just be able to like go in, who wants to be a part of this, and not just for salvations, but also for healings, for deliverances, for different things. And I think that kind of two-sided where you're reaching a lot of people online, but I think as more things go online, you're going to have an increased desire, like everybody, not just Christians, are going to have this increased desire for like actual personal connection. So as we're doing these online, like, we're already doing this on a small scale, but like I talked about, like the TikTok prayer meetings and stuff we talked about. So we may have all these people, and we notice, hey, there's a lot of those people that are in Chicago, or there's a lot of those people like in some random town in like Idaho or something.
Yeah.
Let's like go do a pop-up like in-person event.
Yeah.
The same things that we're doing online, the preaching, the prayer, praying for healings and different stuff. Like, let's go do a pop-up event. And it doesn't have to be like, competing with the churches or anything. It's just like, hey, we're just going to come do this event. We're going to pay for it, and we're going to bounce and like send those people to local churches.
Man, that's awesome.
So that's kind of the dream. That's kind of the rough sketch of what I felt like God gave me in those 3 days of prayer and fasting. Because you see a lot of that through, it's basically, that has been done a lot of different ways, but I just feel like, and it's not just us, I'm sure other people will do it or already doing it. But I just think that's like the 21st century model. Whereas, you had things in the 19th century, you had way back in the day, the circuit rider preachers in the, 16, 17, 1800s that would travel around to all these different towns. You've always had kind of these different iterations, and I think that that's kind of where things are moving next. So that's the plan, is to be able to do that. And I really want to be able to help churches and pastors and ministries, like I said, where we can just be like, hey, come, we got the studio, we got all the stuff, and then hopefully, that will be a blessing to them. And of course, it'll bless people with their content, but also bless those people, because, I just think there's a ton of pastors out there, especially guys that maybe are a little bit older, and ladies that just, they're never going to be like they just don't have the skill to like get on social media and all that stuff. And it's like, they shouldn't have to learn all that.
Right.
But I don't want that wisdom to like die off.
Wow.
Because I think there's a lot of
really
things
good.
that
Wow.
our generation will have to like relearn, when if we could just carry this, carry this into the new generation, it'd
revival.
It'd be a lot easier for us.
Dude, that's fire. That's free game for somebody.
Yeah.
That's fire, man. Get your church
Somebody gonna steal my idea.
Yeah, don't steal
it.
Go to Alex and get him to do it for you.
Yeah.
Don't steal it. Man, no, that's been good. That was really, really good. How would you encourage somebody right now who feels like they're in a waiting season? What would you say to somebody who feels like they're waiting?
I was thinking about this the other day. Actually, I think I got my notes.
Dude, break it out.
Break out the notes real quick.
Uh-oh. Revelation from the notepad.
Here we go. Dude, the Notes app, there's so much knowledge in the Notes app.
Man,
like you never.
Hopefully there is in your phone.
So Psalm 27 says, those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people take that term waiting as just stop. Like, I'm going to just stop everything.
Wow.
And if they have kind of a like resistance in an area, like they can't get in a relationship. Like, let's just use that as an example.
Yeah.
Well, then it's just like everything's just going to go on pause then. Like, everything's just going to stop. So a few things that I said, that you can do is, I'll give you two basic ones and then I'll dive into the third one. But first one is, worship while you wait. What are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the problem? Are you focusing on what you don't have? I don't have a girlfriend, don't have a boyfriend, don't have my degree yet, don't have my job yet. I don't live in the city that I want to live in. Okay, is that what you're focusing on, or are you focusing on the Lord? So worshiping while you wait. It's really hard to complain while you're worshiping. It's really hard to talk about how bad your life is when you're being thankful and different things. Second thing is to, get in the Word. I think the biggest thing that I see people going through when they're in a waiting season is the opportunity to settle for something that's less than what God has for them.
Wow.
So many people will, again, let's just use relationships, because that's what a lot of people say when they say they're in a waiting season. It usually has to do with relationships.
So true, man.
But a lot of people will be like, what's going on? And so they'll have this thing in their mind of, this is the type of man I want. This is the type of woman I want. These are the values that I have. But then after a while, after a year, after 2 years, they'll start kind of scratching those off, and they'll start to say, well, maybe I don't have to have the, maybe they don't have to go to church all the time. Maybe they don't have to, maybe they just, as long as they believe in God, they kind of start lowering that standard. And when you get in the Word of God, the Word of God will remind you of where your standard should be. The Word of God will remind you of where the line should be. So if you're like, well, maybe God wants me to actually do this. It's like, no, because you're constantly getting that word in you, and the enemy isn't able to confuse you because you have that word in you. Because I think just so many people, again, settle for less than what God called them to, and then just get confused. Like, just get confused of, like, did you abandon me, God? Did you forget about me? Did you forsake me? So when you get in the word, you read stuff like, God will never leave you or abandon you. He'll never forsake you, that he has a plan for you, a future for you, a hope and a future, Jeremiah says. Different things like that will help you. And then the last thing, and this is where people like, oh, okay, is work while you wait. Work while you wait. Because, and I've done it too, but I think so many people, when you're not making progress, you want to give up. So like in the gym, we can go back to this, like, you work out for a couple of weeks, you're not going to see any progress. Like, you're just going to be sore. You're probably going to hurt yourself somehow because you don't know how to work out right. You're not getting the right nutrition, and you're just like, this is bad. Like, I hate this, whatever. But you have to continue to work. So I always tell people is, especially, I keep using relationships, but you can use this in any area. What are you working on so that you're ready when God sends that answered prayer? So good. Because I'm a big believer that God is not going to send you what you're praying for until you're ready to receive it, until you're ready to steward it. So a lot of people are praying for a relationship, a promotion. Okay, God knows that if you get that promotion right now, you're going to get fired because you are not ready to handle that new level of responsibility. So God would rather you stay in the lower paying job so that you don't get fired, but you need to work on, okay, who do I need to become so that I'm ready for that next level? Instead of just always praying, God, take me to the next level, take me to my breakthrough. Okay, who do I need to become? What do I need to work on? Whether that's like actual skills, like time management, budgeting, or it could just be, maybe it could be your patience, maybe it could be your physical health, whatever it is. So what can you be working on? Because I think a lot of people, again, going back to, it's like, well, God said wait. Yes, he said wait, but you're not really gonna like force him to move anyways. So if you're working on yourself, yes, God's gonna, like, that's not going against God's word. I don't know. I just think a lot of people get that like really confused, where they think, okay, well, it says wait on God, but that doesn't mean just stop all activity. Doesn't mean just like become stagnant in life, like just sit in your room and eat junk food and because that's another thing. I think people, and I've definitely gone through that in this last little bit. Like, it can be easy to be like, what happened? Like, is everything over now? Like, is everything stopped? But that's one of the greatest seasons for you to develop. And especially if you're listening to this and you're a younger person, you're single, or maybe you're married but you don't have kids yet. Life is just going to start to pile up more. And it's all good. Like, I love my boys, but you're going to have less time. Like, you're going to have more responsibilities, different things. So if you have time right now, work on something.
That's so good.
Like, take a class, read a book, go to the gym. I know that's like hard to hear for a lot of people, because they want like some miraculous thing. Like, how do I get God to do what I want? And you can't get God to do what you want. So just focus on what you can do to become a better person, seek after him more, and when you're ready, he'll bring it.
That's so good. Dang, that's so good. I feel like it's a great place to end it. My goodness, you just knocked that out the ballpark, dude. We'll hang out. We'll end it on that home run. Man, that was good, Alex, dude.
Thank you so much.
Dude, thanks for making time. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing so much wisdom. If no one else gets this, I got something out of it. That was fire, bro. But
no, this was fun.
Man, thanks for being here. That concludes our episode. We hope you enjoyed it. If you got something out of this, maybe share it with somebody who you know might need to hear it. Like, subscribe. Go give Alex Suber a follow on Instagram. We'll put his Instagram handle in the description. But we love you guys so much. See y'all soon for more content. We'll see you later. Peace.